The king is back. The king. Oh dear. Oh, I feel like an old man. Anything but a king. Right. Morning, guys, and welcome back once again to I Like Watches. I appreciate it has been a bit of a Seiko fest on this channel recently, hasn't it? So if Seiko isn't your favourite brand, I do apologise. But I love Seiko watches, and they have released quite a few interesting watches recently, including this brand new King Seiko recreation. I thought this watch was going to steal the headlines and the limelight, but actually it's been the 5KX GMT. The SPB313 that I'm in the middle of wearing for a couple of weeks to produce my 2 weeks on the wrist full review has barely featured on YouTube. I've produced an unboxing and first impressions video, and I am going to be producing a full review of this watch very, very soon. But this watch, along with the new King Seiko recreation, has been sort of, I don't know, left in the shadows by the 5KX GMT. But I still can't resist the temptation to borrow it from Francis & Gay to show you guys, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing today. I don't have this watch for very long. Francis & Gay don't have too many of these, so yeah, I've borrowed it for a couple of days and I'll be sending it back very, very soon. And don't forget, guys, if you are interested in any Seiko watches or just any watches, check out the Francis & Gay website. If you sign up to their newsletter, you automatically get 10% off your first purchase. That's anything, 10% off any Seiko, any watch, any item. And yeah, if you email Ryan, I'm sure he'll sort you guys out. Yeah, this watch has turned up in a rather interesting pouch. That caught me off guard. Well, it actually turned up in a very nice box. And then inside this box was this rather interesting sort of sports pouch. I really was not expecting that. I have done a little bit of homework on this watch. So yeah, I'm going to give this watch a good going over and talk about the packaging and, well, everything. So yeah, let's just get into it, shall we? Now, if you decide to pull the trigger on one of these Seiko King Seikos, this is how it's going to turn up. This is the SPB279J1, currently costing £1,470. And you can only pick these up from the Seiko boutique in London and a handful of stores in the UK known as salons, of which Francis & Gay is one of. One of 4 or 5 salons in the UK. So I wouldn't say this watch is limited edition or difficult to get hold of, but Seiko have decided not to send this watch out to every single authorised dealer within the UK. You may have to travel to actually take a look at one of these watches, which is why I think videos like this should be quite useful for some people. Now, the shape of the box is obviously a little bit different to normal Seiko watches that turn up. I need to be very careful with this, obviously, because it needs to go back to Francis and Gay. And yeah, when I opened this up and saw this pouch inside, I was genuinely surprised. This watch is being marketed as, well, a sort of luxury watch to some degree. £1,470 is a sort of luxury price tag as far as I'm concerned. So when it turned up in a canvas pouch, yeah, I was, well, actually disappointed. Now, if you decide to go to Francis & Gay and spend less money on their Seiko limited edition 1959 Alpinist recreation, yeah, this is how it's going to turn up. And to be honest, this is what I was sort of expecting with the King Seiko. I mean, look at this beautifully finished box. And then, yeah, inside you've got this limited edition Seiko Alpinist, £1,350 at the moment with Francis & Gay. Here's the tag. Where we go? SJE085J1. This normally retails for £2,700. I'm going to be producing some content on this watch because it's got a very interesting movement inside, the 6L35, which is a sort of fairly high-end movement from Seiko. Right, let's get back to this King Seiko because this is the watch we are looking at today. So yeah, this is the pouch. It does seem, yeah, nicely made, but it is not what I was expecting. Let's open it up and have a look at this watch. Okay, so poppers. I was half expecting Velcro. I think that would have been the straw that broke the camel's back, wouldn't it? Imagine sort of tearing up a sort of strip of Velcro. It would have felt like one of those sort of Velcro wallets that we all had in the 90s. Oh man. Actually, feels very nice. The inside material is very suedey, maybe even leather. I'm not sure. Feels nice though. On the side, we've got some instructions and zip pouch. Nothing in there. Let's close that back up. And then under here, we should have the watch. 2 pouches. Okay. Let's get the watch out first. Yeah. It's not really the presentation we were hoping for, was it? Oh yeah, let's see what's in here. A divider. Okay, so Seiko, on the Seiko website, have this facility where you can look at this watch on some alternative straps. It looks like they have produced, specifically for this watch, some alternative leather straps. And I think this section is for you to store the bracelet, actually. If you want to put this watch on one of their specifically made leather straps, I guess you can store the watch in here on the leather strap and safely store the bracelet essentially either side, using this as a divider to stop the bracelet from damaging itself, and then you would just tuck that in there with the bracelet. So yeah, that's thoughtful. I guess they're giving you somewhere to store your bracelet, and yeah, and then obviously a pouch to store your watch. But it's just a bit too sporty for this watch. Although, I don't think it's a dress watch. It's more of an all stainless steel sort of sports watch. No loom on it by the looks of it. But yeah, I wouldn't say it's an out and out dress watch. I mean, look how thick that is. Dress watches, proper dress watches, tend to be a lot flatter. Right, that's enough of the packaging. Let's take a look at the watch. I think I'm going to get it resized. I'll be back in a mo. Right, it's been resized and this handsome beast is now on my wrist. Are you ready for a wrist shot? 3, 2, 1. And there it is on my 7 1/4 inch-ish wrist. I will give you some dimensions and specifications in a moment, but I just couldn't resist the temptation to put this thing on and show you guys. Now, I did see some pictures when this watch was first sort of released to the public, if you like, and I wasn't impressed. I didn't think the watch was particularly pretty. I liked the dial. It was the lugs and the case shape that sort of turned me off, but the pictures just do not do it justice. I hope it's coming across through my camera just how good looking this watch is, actually. I am very pleasantly surprised. The bracelet is also very, very nice. But actually the lugs, which is what turned me off it initially, are not that imposing. They just look too big and too long and too fat. I thought, anyway. The proportions didn't look right, but the pictures just really, really do not do it justice. Right, let me take it off and we'll run through some specifications, I think. 37mm in diameter, 12.4 thick, case length 43.6, including the male end links 47.7, 19mm lug width, tapering down to 16.8. Set up for my average sized wrist, it now weighs 117 grams. The crystal is sapphire crystal, very nice piece of box sapphire crystal. It looks flat on top, doesn't look like there's any domage to that. So yeah, lovely clarity through to the dial at a tight angle. Yeah, nice piece of crystal. Doesn't say it on the dial, but it has 100 meters of water resistance, so a screw down case back and a pull push crown both have the King Seiko logo on them. The case back has the name and some specifications, so not an out and out dress watch, more of a sort of everyday sporty stainless steel watch with a dressier edge for sure. Now we come to the finishing, and it looks pretty good, I've got to say. It is one of my complaints with Seiko watches. You can spend £400, £500, £600 on a Seiko watch and the steel doesn't tend to have the level of finishing that some significantly cheaper watches have. Now the brushing and the polishing on this watch looks very, very good. It's not Zaratsu polished. They do make a limited edition King Seiko watch that is significantly more expensive than this and does have Zaratsu polished, so don't be confused by the marketing material if you see the term Zaratsu polished. These more affordable King Seikos are not Zaratsu polished. The dial's also very nice. Vertical brushing on this dial, not a sunburst effect. Not the most legible, being silver on silver on silver, but it's plenty legible enough. There's facets on the hands, which obviously changes the colour of the silver over and above the dial. So yeah, you know, fairly legible for silver on silver, and yeah, just a gorgeous dial. Love these faceted applied indexes. The 12 o'clock index has some interesting detail on it. You've got a minute track around the outside. Look, Seiko applied under the 12, King Seiko automatic printed above the 6. Now the bracelet is actually a bit of a standout feature, I've got to say. Reminds me a little bit of James's 5-link tapering engineer style bracelet. Lots of articulation, lots of light play. This watch has some very nicely polished facets on it. Which means the light play is even more exaggerated. Yeah, fairly nice end links. They seem to fit okay. Is there any movement? No, they're fairly solid in there. Solid end links, solid links. Push pin and collar system to change the links, but actually that wasn't too difficult. Butterfly clasp, no micro adjustments. Unfortunately, I've been able to get a fairly decent fit. It's a touch tighter than I would have wanted. And yeah, if I add an extra link in, it definitely becomes too loose. The advantage of these butterfly clasps is obviously you get this beautiful continuation of the bracelet all the way around, which does give the watch a more dressier look and feel. But the downside is, of course, the lack of micro adjusts. King Seiko there, look, very nicely done, I have to say. A beautiful bracelet. Right, I am back from having popped it on the time grapher, and the results are in. This 6R31 movement is running pretty well, I gotta say. I adjusted the lift angle to 53 degrees to represent this movement. And the beat error is pretty much perfect. The amplitude is good, and the accuracy +2, +3 seconds a day. On the time grapher, yeah, that's pretty impressive, isn't it? I don't think it gets much better than that. Interestingly, when I unboxed the diver, the SPB313, that has the 6R35 movement in it, which is the date version of this movement, and quite a few comments in that video saying it's a dog of a movement. I've got a few 6R movements, and yeah, none of them are running badly. They're all pretty good. I've not had any issues with them. So yeah, it's news to me, but yeah, maybe there are some 6R movements out there that aren't running particularly well. If you buy a watch, obviously, and it's got a 6R movement or any movement from Seiko and it's not running well, take it back. Right, I'm going to go and take some footage of this watch now, wear it outside, take some macro shots, which you may have already seen, spend a few hours with this watch, and then I'm going to film the summary. So you'll see me right now, but yeah, I'm going to spend some time with this watch and then summarize the value for money and whether or not I think Seiko have nailed it with this new King Seiko. Right, what are my final thoughts then on this new King Seiko? So I've spent the last 4.5 hours taking photos, footage, wearing the watch, looking at it under a macro lens. I've taken it outside, looked at it in different lighting conditions, and I've also brought out the Grand Seiko SBGX263. I was curious to see these two side by side because actually they're very similar in their style, their sizes, their dimensions, very similar actually. Obviously the Grand Seiko is a quartz. I have reviewed this watch. It's my most popular video ever actually, around 115,000 views now. I'm also giving it away at some point when that video reaches 250,000 views. So yeah, make sure you find that video and take part. Now, the King Seiko. I didn't like the look of it when I saw it in the pictures. So the one thing that has really surprised me is actually how gorgeous it is. It's a handsome, handsome watch. Love the bracelet. Love the dimensions. I actually really like the lugs in the photos. That was the one thing that really turned me off. It's a very nice watch. On my wrist, I think it looks beautiful. Probably not quite as beautiful as the Grand Seiko, but I do really like it. What I thought I was going to be sitting here saying was, it's incredibly well finished. It's as good as a Grand Seiko, but with an affordable movement, and yeah, it just looks nice. But actually, the finishing, I wouldn't say it's disappointing, but I thought they were going to be trying to produce a watch that was almost, if not Zaratsu polished, sort of level of finishing, with a more affordable movement in it, to give us something really quite special for, you know, a decent chunk of money. £1,470 is a lot of money, but I don't think the finishing is up to scratch for a £1,500 watch. This is a £2,000 watch, and it's Zaratsu polished, and honestly, you really can tell the difference. You really can. Under a macro lens, nothing under the crystal. No specks, no nothing. Under the macro lens, okay, you don't see them when you're not looking under a macro lens, so that might be, you know, up to Seiko's standards. But there are specks of dust on the applied indices, and the polishing on the case it's nice, but it's no better than a micro brand sort of level. You know, a £400-500 watch from a micro brand produces finishing as good as this. So yeah, I'm not really sitting here and summarising in the way that I thought I would. It's more beautiful than I thought it was going to be, but it's not finished to quite the same standards that I thought it was going to be. I thought the finishing was going to be this watch's strengths, but it's actually the way it looks and the way it wears. I don't mind the movement. The 6R35 movement, yeah, it's a lot of money for that movement, but as you saw from the time grapher, this one's working really, really well, and I actually haven't had any bad experiences with the 6R35, so... I don't have an issue with the movement. It would be nice if it was a higher beat movement. But yeah, £1,470 Seiko. Oh, you're giving yourselves a hard job. Yeah, it's a real shame. If I had 1,500 quid to £2,000 to spend on a watch, I mean, there'd be no doubt about it. It would be this affordable Grand Seiko, well, their cheapest Grand Seiko, all the way. And I suspect it's watches like this that could potentially mean this isn't going to be around for too long, because, well, people are going to do exactly that, aren't they? They're going to look at these two watches and go, why would I have a King Seiko when I can have an actual Grand Seiko for just a few £100s more? It's a no-brainer, isn't it? Especially if you can get this one for free, which you may well do if you take part in my giveaway. Right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. I've been scratching my head over this watch all morning, and... yeah, I've got a headache now. It's really giving me a headache, this one. I so desperately wanted to love it and produce a review where I just raved about it, but it's fallen a little bit flat, hasn't it? I'm really sorry. Let me know what you think of it, guys, in the comment section. Please do. It's still beautiful, but yeah, I wouldn't spend that sort of money on it. Right, I'm leaving it there, guys. Take care. Look after yourselves. You'll see me again very soon.